There's a quiet crisis happening today, and most people don't even see it. A kind of inner collapse. On the surface, things seem fine. Jobs, cars, smartphones, gym memberships. But something's missing. Something deep. Many modern men never really grow into who they're meant to be. Not because they don't want to, but because they don't know how. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, saw this coming over 100 years ago. He didn't talk about real men the way pop culture does. He wasn't interested in toughness or dominance. For Jung, becoming a real man wasn't about power. It was about integration, about becoming whole. Modern life, though, pulls men away from that. From boyhood, most are told how to act, how to feel, what to suppress. Don't cry. Be strong. Win. Provide. Protect. But no one teaches them how to understand their own minds. No one explains how to deal with pain that doesn't go away, or the parts of themselves they're ashamed of. They hide those parts, push them down, laugh it off, numb it. But here's what Jung warned us about. Whatever you suppress doesn't just disappear. It waits. It builds pressure in the unconscious. And eventually, it shows up in ways you don't expect. Anger, anxiety, addiction, even the quiet feeling that your life doesn't feel like your own. This is where Jung's idea of the shadow comes in. The shadow is everything you've rejected in yourself. All the feelings, desires, and instincts you've denied to keep your mask in place. The more you deny it, the more power it has over you, and the less you feel like a whole person. Most modern men live entirely cut off from their shadow. They build a persona, a public face that looks competent, successful, in control. But underneath that mask, there's confusion, a sense of being lost, and sometimes a deep loneliness that's hard to admit. That's why so many chase constant achievement or distraction. The next promotion, the next woman, the next dopamine hit. But no matter how much they gain, the emptiness doesn't go away. Because the real issue isn't outside, it's inside. The journey that needs to happen is inward. That's what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming who you really are by facing and integrating all the hidden parts of yourself. But here's the problem. Modern culture doesn't guide men through that journey. There are no initiation rites anymore. No elders, no mentors who help young men confront their inner world. Instead, there's noise, social media, hustle culture, shallow advice disguised as wisdom. So most men are left on their own without a map. And when life inevitably brings pain, loss, failure, heartbreak, many don't know how to respond. Some shut down. Some lash out. Others try to pretend nothing's wrong. But pain, Jung said, is not the enemy. It's a signal, a call to go deeper, a door that opens into the soul, if you have the courage to walk through it. And this is where the real transformation begins, not with fixing everything on the outside, but with facing what's been hidden inside. That means looking at the anger that's been buried since childhood, the fear of not being good enough, the need to prove something to a father who never gave approval, the wounds that were never acknowledged. This isn't easy work. It's uncomfortable. It shakes the foundation. But Jung believed that real growth, real manhood, only begins when you stop running from your shadow and start listening to what it's been trying to tell you. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about becoming who you already are, beneath the layers of conditioning, fear, and performance. That's what makes it so hard, because to do that, you have to strip away everything that gave you a sense of control. You have to feel what you've been avoiding. You have to face the chaos within. But here's the strange part. When you finally do, you start to feel something else, a kind of peace, a strength that doesn't come from dominance or status, but from self-knowledge, from knowing your darkness and choosing not to be ruled by it. That's the paradox Jung uncovered. The more you embrace your shadow, the less power it has over you. And the more human, the more grounded, the more authentic you become. Most modern men never reach this point. Not because they're weak, but because the world never gave them the tools. They were told to be useful, not soulful. They were taught how to compete, not how to connect. And so, their inner life remained a mystery. Instead of confronting their shadow, they distract themselves. With work, with sex, with success, or worse, by pretending they're already complete, but underneath, there's still a part of them waiting to be seen, to be heard, to be healed. Jung believed that every man carries an inner king, a warrior, a lover, a magician, but these energies don't come alive unless you do the inner work. This work doesn't come with rewards you can post online. It's slow, it's quiet. Sometimes it feels like nothing's happening, but over time, something begins to shift. You stop reacting from old wounds. You stop needing approval from the world. You stop feeling like you're performing your life instead of living it. And maybe for the first time, you feel real, not perfect, not invincible, but whole. That feeling of wholeness isn't about having everything figured out. It's not about being fearless or always knowing what to do. It's about being connected to every part of yourself, even the parts that once scared you. The grief, the rage, the tenderness, the doubt, all of it has a place. All of it belongs. Jung understood that a real man isn't someone who is flawless. A real man is someone who has confronted his flaws and chosen to live with awareness. He doesn't try to dominate the world to feel powerful. He learns to master himself, and through that inner mastery, he finds a deeper connection to life, to others, and to something greater than himself. But modern society rarely values that kind of man. We celebrate the loud, the flashy, the confident. The man who never cries, never breaks, never asks for help. But Jung would say, that's not a man, that's a mask. And the longer you wear that mask, the harder it is to remember who you really are underneath it. Every man, at some point, hits a crossroads. Maybe it comes in the form of a crisis, a relationship falling apart, a job that feels meaningless, a sudden wave of anxiety that doesn't go away. Or maybe it comes slowly, over years, as a quiet dissatisfaction that keeps growing. Either way, it's a call. A chance to finally stop running and start turning inward. And that's the beginning of individuation. Not a one-time event, but a lifelong journey. A journey into the unknown landscape of your own psyche. It takes honesty. It takes humility. It takes courage, because on that path, you will face not only your wounds, but also your potential, and that can be just as terrifying, but also liberating, because once you begin to integrate the parts of yourself you once disowned, you become less reactive, less controlled by the past. You stop chasing hollow victories and start building something real, a life with depth, meaning, and connection. You learn to stand still in moments of pain and actually feel. You learn to speak with clarity instead of posturing with bravado. And slowly, you begin to carry a quiet confidence that doesn't need to prove anything. That's what Jung meant by becoming whole. Not perfect, but real. And it's something the world desperately needs today. Not more men pretending to be strong, but more men willing to be honest, willing to heal, willing to lead. Not from ego, but from integration. Willing to lead, not from ego, but from integration. Because when a man leads from that place, something changes. He doesn't just act from impulse or fear. He listens, first to himself, then to others. He doesn't need to dominate a room to feel powerful. His presence speaks for itself, calm, grounded, fully alive. He becomes someone others can trust, not because he has all the answers, but because he's done the inner work to sit with not knowing. This is the essence of mature masculinity. Not aggression, not control, but responsibility. Responsibility for your emotions, for your decisions, for your impact on others. Jung believed that only by confronting the unconscious, by integrating the shadow, can a man take true ownership of his life. Otherwise, he remains a puppet, pulled by invisible strings he doesn't understand. And that's the tragedy of so many modern lives. Men walking around with unchecked rage, buried grief, repressed desire, and no idea where it's all coming from, acting out, burning bridges, or slowly imploding, all because they never learned how to turn inward and ask, what am I really feeling? What have I been avoiding? What part of me needs to be seen? The truth is, the real work doesn't happen in public. It's not flashy. It doesn't get applause. It happens in quiet moments, when you're alone with your thoughts, staring into the mirror, asking hard questions. It happens when you choose not to lash out, but to pause. When you admit you were wrong. When you feel sadness and let the tears come, without shame. These are the moments that shape the man you become. And yet, it's exactly these moments that modern culture discourages. Vulnerability is often mocked. Slowing down is seen as weakness. Depth is replaced by distraction. And so, most men drift, externally successful, internally starving, looking for something, anything, to fill the void. But nothing external can do that. The void is not a flaw. It's a signal, a message from the soul, calling you back to yourself, and when you stop running and start listening, you begin to see it differently, not as emptiness, but as space. Space for truth, space for growth, space to become the man you were always meant to be. And this becoming, it's not about becoming someone else, it's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. Beneath all the conditioning, the fear, the pressure to perform, there's something raw, honest, and deeply human waiting to emerge. And once you touch that place, everything changes, not all at once, not in some dramatic, cinematic moment, but slowly, subtly, from the inside out. You begin to move differently in the world. You listen more deeply. You speak more honestly. You stop trying to impress people who were never paying attention in the first place, because now you're building something stronger than an image. You're building a self. This is what Carl Jung meant when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But that privilege doesn't come without effort. You have to earn it. Not by grinding harder or chasing status, but by being willing to descend into yourself, to sort through the darkness, and to rise again with something real. And here's the beautiful part. The more you do this work, the more you realize you're not alone. Every man carries a story. Every man has wounds. Every man struggles with the gap between who he shows the world and who he truly is. The difference is, some keep pretending, others choose to go inward. The men who go inward, they start to change everything around them. Their relationships deepen. They parent with more empathy. They stop competing with other men and start supporting them. They become safe to be around because they've made peace with themselves. That's the real strength. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that needs a stage or a spotlight, but the quiet, unshakable kind that comes from knowing who you are and owning every piece of it, even the messy ones. But there's one more thing Jung would want us to understand. This journey never ends. Individuation isn't a box you check. It's a spiral. You keep circling back, facing new layers, discovering new truths. And each time you do, you grow, not into someone better, but into someone truer. So the question isn't just how to become a real man. The question is, are you willing to begin? Are you willing to face the part of yourself you've ignored for too long? Are you willing to stop performing and start listening? Are you willing to let go of who you think you should be in order to become who you actually are? Because that's where it starts, right there. In the silence, in the honesty, in the decision to stop running, and to turn toward yourself, maybe for the first time. That's the moment everything begins to shift. Not because life suddenly gets easier, but because you stop abandoning yourself in the face of difficulty. You start walking with your pain instead of pushing it away. You stop chasing validation and start building inner value. And even when it's uncomfortable, even when it hurts, you stay with yourself. This is the path Jung laid out. Not a shortcut, not a hack, but a journey into wholeness. A return to the center. A reconnection with what's most human, most sacred, and most alive inside you. But here's the truth. Not everyone takes this path. Most won't. It's easier to distract, to perform, to settle for a surface life. But those who do take it, the men who choose depth over ease, truth over image, these are the ones who slowly transform the world around them. Not with force, but with presence. They stop being ruled by their wounds and start healing them. They stop living out the patterns of the past and start creating something new. And people feel that in their families, in their friendships, in the quiet steadiness they carry into the room. These men don't need to call themselves real men. They don't need to prove it, they just live it. They know that strength is not about being unbreakable. It's about being honest when you are broken, and choosing to rebuild with intention. They understand that masculinity isn't rigid, it's expansive. It holds fire and tenderness, discipline and play, silence and expression. And most of all, they learn to carry both their darkness and their light with integrity. They stop hiding from the parts of themselves that are wild, sensitive, emotional, and raw, because now they understand those parts aren't weak, they're human, and honoring them makes them more whole, not less. In the end, that's what Jung was pointing us toward, wholeness. Not the illusion of perfection, not the chase for dominance, but the deep, lived experience of becoming fully yourself. So maybe the question isn't, why don't most modern men become real men? Maybe the better question is, what would happen if they did? What kind of world would we live in if more men chose depth over distraction? If more men sat with their discomfort instead of numbing it? If they allowed themselves to feel grief without shame, to express love without fear, to admit confusion without losing their dignity? Imagine a world where men didn't have to wear armor every day just to feel safe, where they didn't have to prove their worth through conquest or control, but simply by showing up, fully, as they are. Where being a man didn't mean fitting into a box, but breaking out of it. This isn't fantasy. It's possible, but it takes a choice, and not just once, over and over again. Every time a man chooses reflection, over reaction, he takes a step. Every time he admits he doesn't have all the answers, he grows. Every time he listens, really listens, to his inner world, instead of drowning it in noise, he heals. And that healing ripples outward, into his relationships, into his work, into his children if he has them, into every space he enters. That's the quiet revolution Jung believed in, not through power, but through consciousness. And yet, there will always be resistance. The old habits don't die easy. The world will keep offering distractions, shortcuts, and scripts that promise safety. But real growth doesn't live there. It lives in the slow, patient unfolding of the self, in the choice to meet your shadow, not with fear, but with curiosity. And over time, you stop seeing the shadow as an enemy. You begin to understand it was never trying to destroy you, it was trying to wake you up, to the parts of yourself you left behind, to the child in you that still longs to be seen, to the potential you've only scratched the surface of. This is what most modern men are missing, not because they are weak or broken, but because they've been taught to fear their own depths. But once they turn inward, once they accept that the path to becoming whole leads straight through their wounds, then they begin to change. And that change, it's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it's powerful. It shows up in the way they hold space for others, in the way they forgive, in the way they lead, not with ego, but with empathy. This is the kind of man Jung was pointing to. Not a finished product, not a perfect role model, but a man in motion, a man becoming,